I have behind me here an athletic field at Ithaca's Cornell University up on top of this hill here. You know, it's funny. You would not have seen people doing this, what you see these people doing 200 years ago or 300 or 500 years ago, anywhere in America or anywhere in Europe. But you would have seen it in ancient Greece. And the question is why? What happened in Europe and in America between the period of ancient Greece and then the 19th and 20th century in America, when suddenly people started playing sports very intensely again? Think about it. In the Middle Ages, people did not play sports. The most exercise they got was sweating on a farm, doing work. Maybe some people hunted, but that was about it. People certainly didn't run around a track to get themselves fit. So sports have made a comeback in modern America. This is yet another thing that we take from the ancient Greeks, our love of sports, and I want to talk to you more about that. Well, this football stadium is closed to the public because of COVID-19, but I'm getting my camera kind of in through the bars anyway, so you can have a look. You know, as I just said, sports pretty much went out of existence in Europe during the Middle Ages. People didn't play organized sports. In Britain, especially in England, in the 19th century, that's the 1800s, rugby became a very, very popular game, as you may know. And then when rugby reached North America, it evolved into the game we know as football today. And that is now the major game, I think, that people play and watch in the United States. Also during the 19th century, during the 1800s, a Frenchman decided to recreate the ancient Greek Olympics because they had fallen into disfavor, and they were actually non-existent for many centuries. The idea was to resurrect the ancient Greek Olympic Games, and they did that in 1896. Since then, we've had the Olympics, Winter Olympics as well as Summer Olympics every few years. And so we are, again, imitating and copying from the ancient Greeks in our love of sports and our dedication to sports. Have a look before we go. Have a look up at the stands here at the Cornell football stadium. It looks pretty Greek to me, doesn't it? You know, the Greeks honored their famous Olympic athletes, kind of like we honor our celebrity athletes today. And that's another thing that we get from Greek culture. Again, as I said, in the Middle Ages, there were no celebrity athletes. People didn't play sports. But in ancient Greece, they sure did. And the athletes were treated, especially those that won gold, those that won at the games, you know, they won the crown of leaves on their heads. Those ones were treated almost as if they were gods. The Greeks put great emphasis on physical fitness, and you see that in our culture today. They thought a bronzed, fit, athletic, healthy body was very, very important. And so they invented the gymnasium. You know the word, gymnasium. It means in Greek, gymnos means a place where people exercise naked. Greek athletes exercised without clothes on. That was just part of how they did things, okay? And we get our word gymnasium, but we also get our concept of a gym, a fitness center, from the Greeks. So it's a place, not in our homes, where we go to exercise in public. I guarantee you, 200, 300, 500 years ago, especially in the Middle Ages, people did not exercise in public. This is us taking a cultural tradition from ancient Greece. Yeah, so another thing we get from the ancient Greeks is our kind of insistence that our great big sporting event turn into a kind of national holiday. Back in Greek times, the Olympics were a huge holiday for those who participated in them and for those who went to view them. People put their lives on pause so they could travel and witness the games or participate in them. At the games, there were feasts, there were religious ceremonies to honor the gods. It was a very big, complicated deal. I would suggest to you that our Super Bowl for football is something similar to the Olympian festivities. There's eating, there's drinking. For the halftime show, there's dancing in elaborate costumes.
So let's get filling out our form for this video. If you'll open up your email and find the Google form that should look like this, or rather the email should look like this. When the Greeks infected the world with gold medal fever. Click on fill out form. And you should see this form in front of you. Let me read the directions to you. When the Greeks infected the world with gold medal fever, please answer the following questions. Then click the submit button at the bottom. Thank you. So I will dutifully put my name on the top. Oh, my email went in there automatically. Okay, you do the same when it's your turn. Let me read the first question to you. How is America's fascination with celebrity athletes similar to the ancient Greeks' fascination with Olympic athletes? Remember in the video I talked about that. Let me come up with my answer. How am I going to put this? I'm thinking aloud. And often that's a useful thing that you might try to do. It's a useful thing. Close your door and talk aloud when you have to answer essay questions or even short answer questions from English class or from social studies class. Just talk aloud and then write down what you said. Well, in America, our celebrity athletes are kind of godlike, right? I don't mean this in any unpleasant or blasphemous way. I'm simply saying that our athletes are kind of godlike. And in ancient Greece, the Olympic athletes were seen as godlike. Okay, so let me write that down. In America, many people regard celebrity athletes as godlike, comma, and the ancient Greeks, or I'm just going to put, and the Greeks did the same with their Olympic champions. Period. I'm done, I think. Now, you might come up with a different answer when you're comparing America's fascination with celebrity athletes with the ancient Greeks' fascination with their Olympic athletes, and that's fine. You just put that in there. I'm just demonstrating for you how you might do this. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, as straightforward as possible, user-friendly. Next question. What is one modern sport influenced or invented by the Greeks? Do you remember when I was in the video? Do you remember when I was standing in front of that running track? Hint. Thinking of track and field events. And I'm not even gonna demonstrate the model answer. Okay, I'm just giving you that really big hint. No, I will demonstrate. I'm gonna start the sentence. One modern sport invented by the Greeks is, and then I'm gonna let you fill in the rest of that sentence, okay? I'm going to make it, I want to make it a complete sentence. I'm going to try to make it a complete sentence because, this is English class and it's really, really nice if you strive to write well-rounded and complete sentences in English class. You don't just write, oh, track and field or javelin throwing. It's nice to write in complete sentences. Anyway, third question. Let's read this together. I'll read while you track with your eyes. Some people say American teenagers spend too much time playing sports after school. After all, in most other modern countries, students hardly play after-school sports. Instead, they go home and spend many hours per night on homework. If you were in charge of things, would you cancel most high school sports so that American teenagers could spend more time studying? Please explain your answer. First thing that comes to my mind is, who are these crazy people who say that we shouldn't be playing sports and that we should be studying, 7 or 8 hours every afternoon and evening? But I don't want to hurt those people's feelings. So, what's my opinion going to be? I think that's nonsense. I think the system's perfectly good the way it is. I think kids in this country learn more than enough. They have more than enough homework. They sit in school for 6 hours. Isn't that enough? Or is it 7 hours, as the case may be? Isn't that enough? Can't they go outside in the fresh air after school and throw a ball around and, exercise and run and do jumping jacks and be healthy after all that sitting in school? Do we really want kids to sit in school for 7 hours or 7.5 or sometimes even 8 hours and then sit on the bus, okay, and then go home and then sit at their desk in their rooms and for another 7 or 8 hours just sit? That's not healthy. That's not good for your body. It's not good for your lungs, it's not good for your heart, and it's not good for your brain. It's not good for the mind and for the emotions to just do all that sitting. Okay, I know. Kids in China, they go home and they work on homework until midnight. And then they get up the next morning and do it again. But last I checked, we're not in China, are we? Okay? We're in the United States. We have our traditions. In China, they have their traditions. In other parts of the world, they have their traditions too. In some parts of the world, kids don't go to school at all. They work on the family farm and they're happy. And they don't, their lives are none the worse for it, okay? We do things this way in the United States. We have a high emphasis on after-school sports. And it just seems bizarre to me to want to change a system that's not broken. Okay, so that's my answer. That's what my answer is going to be. I was just thinking out loud so I can model for you how I might answer this little essay question. Not even an essay question. It's like a half paragraph. Okay. Now let me go back. I'm going to do one sentence at a time. How am I going to start this? Let me remind myself what I just said. How about I start with this? Look at this. Where it says, if you were in charge of things. Let me start with that expression. If I were in charge of things. Okay, if I were in charge of things, comma, I would not cancel high school sports. I would not cancel high school sports, but rather encourage them. But rather encourage them and provide them with even more funding. And provide, you gotta have funds, and provide them with even more funding. What's my next sentence going to be? The students or the teenagers in America spend, let's just round it up. Let's just say they spend 8 hours in school. Because if you think about it, you have to spend the time sitting on a bus or sitting in a car driving to school. For some people, that takes 20 minutes or half an hour. So let's say you leave the house at 7 o'clock. And then school goes until what, 3 o'clock? I mean, in many schools, in many high schools, that's when the final bell rings, 3 o'clock. Well, from 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock, that's a good 8 hours. And then maybe another 20 minutes or 30 minutes to get home. You're looking at 8.5 hours. So it's not an exaggeration to say that American teenagers spend 8 hours a day doing school in some form. So I would rather encourage them and provide them with even more funding. American teenagers spend 8 hours a day sitting in school. Okay, and I'm not lying and I'm not exaggerating. American teenagers spend 8 hours a day sitting in school, working hard. Okay. It's hard work being a student. And it is hard sitting at a desk. Okay, you get to move when it's time to change periods, but that's not a lot. You're sitting at a desk. You can't get up and move whenever you want to. That's hard. So American teenagers spend 8 hours a day sitting in school working hard. Why should we punish them by making them go home and spend another 8 hours at a desk? How's that? Let's write that down. Why punish them by making them go home and spend another 8 hours at a desk? Everyone knows that spending a lot of time seated is bad for your physical and mental health. How's that? I'm going to write that down. Everyone knows that spending too much time seated is bad for our physical and mental health. Yeah, it is. Teenagers need after-school sports to release stress and decompress after school. How's that? Teenagers need after-school sports to release stress and decompress. And it kind of rhymes too, isn't that nice? Teenagers need after-school sports to release stress and decompress. And of course, everyone needs some form of movement, as often as possible. Even if you're just going for a walk a few times a week, we need to get out and move, okay, to release our stress and decompress. Let's wrap things up. I'm going to put another sentence in. American teenagers are smart enough. After all, we have some of the best colleges and universities in the world, like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, etc. We're smart enough. The work that we do in school is sufficient. We don't have to do more. Doing more is not going to make us any better. It's going to make us more stressed out. Okay? A human being can only absorb so much learning material when he's sitting at a desk studying. After a while, I mean, even if he puts in 12 hours a day, it's not going to be quality time spent studying, is it? Because most of the time he's going to spend daydreaming or being nervous or frustrated. So, how can I organize what I just said? Because what I just said is a big mishmash of a bunch of ideas. The important thing is not how many hours you spend studying. The important thing is the quality of the hours you spend studying. The important thing is not how many hours you spend studying, but rather the quality. I'm going to put that in capital letters because I'm emphasizing the quality of those hours. Okay? It's better to spend 1 hour really super focused with a fresh, clear mind on studying your math than to spend, 7 or 8 hours kind of piddling along at a snail's pace with your math because you're exhausted and you're not sure you understand it and you're bored and you're distracted and you want to do anything but math, right? Quality over quantity. I think I'm done. I've said enough. What I'm going to do now, and I want you to do this too, please, is when you're done writing, read your little paragraph aloud so that you can catch any mistakes, any little grammatical mistakes you may have made. Watch how I do it. Let me see if I get any mistakes. I'm going to start again from the beginning. If I were in charge of things, I would not cancel high school sports, but rather encourage them and provide them with even more funding. Sounds good so far. American teenagers spend 8 hours a day sitting in school working hard. Good. Why punish them by making them go home and spend another 8 hours at a desk? Yeah. Everyone knows that spending too much time seated is bad for our physical and mental health. Teenagers need after-school sports to release stress and decompress. The important thing is not how many hours you spend studying, but rather the quality of those hours. I think that's okay. And that's just my sample answer that I just made up off the top of my head. You could answer this question in a completely different way. You could take the opposite approach. You could say that, yeah, teenagers in America spend way too much time playing sports, and we need to spend our time after school doing something like studying science or math or taking music lessons, okay, and building up our minds. Because when you're 70 years old, no one's going to care if you were good at lacrosse or throwing a football or hitting a baseball out of a park back when you were in your teens. No one's going to care about that. People are going to care about, is your mind healthy? Are you learning? Are you growing mentally, intellectually? I mean, that's what's going to be most important in the future. Not your athletic achievements back when you were 14. Okay. So I could have taken that approach. I could have taken a number of approaches. And you can take whatever approach you want when you write your little short paragraph. Okay? So anyway, now that I'm done, I go down here, and you're going to do the same. I click the submit button. And you should see a screen that looks exactly like this. There you see those Olympic gold medalists up at the top. They're celebrities. They're godlike, and we can thank the Greeks for all that. Anyway, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Good luck now as you do your Google form that I sent you. And please don't forget, read your responses aloud so that you can hear if you made any small mistakes. in writing. Good luck.